"This space," Jasper declared, after surveying my koi pond with a critical eye, "needs intention. It needs narrative. It needs pretension." I nodded along, trying to look like I understood. "So, you think you can help?" "Darling," he said with a dramatic flourish, "I am help. I will imbue this aquatic tableau with meaning, with depth, with art." The water shimmered, a perfect rectangle of turquoise against the relentlessly green lawn. It was a sleek, modern design, all clean lines and minimalist landscaping, a stark contrast to the rows of identical colonial-style houses that lined the streets of Sunridge Estates. The sunlight danced on the surface, creating hypnotic patterns that seemed to melt away stress. The gentle hum of the filter was a constant, soothing reminder of my accomplishment. I'd splurged on the underwater lighting, the self-cleaning system, the heated option for those chilly evenings. It was an investment, yes, but it was an investment in my happiness. It was everything I'd ever wanted, a sparkling blue oasis in a desert of beige siding and meticulously manicured lawns. My own little slice of paradise, right in my backyard, I thought, sinking into a plush lounge chair, the warm sun on my skin. I could spend hours out here, reading, swimming, or simply floating, letting the world drift away. Of course, I knew that in Sunridge Estates, true happiness was always just one HOA meeting away from being outlawed. I just didn't realize how soon that meeting would come. The doorbell's insistent chime shattered the tranquility. I knew, even before I saw her standing on my porch, clipboard in hand, that it was Mildred Hawthorne. Mildred Hawthorne. A retired interior designer with a penchant for pastels, a superiority complex the size of Texas, and a deep-seated hatred of anything that deviated from her narrow definition of good taste. She was the kind of woman who probably ironed her napkins and alphabetized her canned goods. She was also, unfortunately for me, the president of the Sunridge Estates Homeowners Association. "Mr. Thompson," she began, her voice tight and disapproving, "I'm afraid we have a situation." She peered past me, her gaze fixed on my pool with an expression of utter disgust. "That water feature in your backyard, it's problematic." "Problematic?" I asked, feigning innocence. "In what way?" "In every way," she declared, her voice rising. It's modern. It clashes with the established aesthetic of our community. It's garish. It's ostentatious." She said ostentatious as if I'd erected a neon sign flashing obscenities. "It simply will not do." Her thin lips were pressed into a tight line, her eyes narrowed, daring me to challenge her. The battle lines, it seemed, were already drawn. The emergency HOA meeting was held in the usual location, the community center's multi-purpose room, a space as devoid of charm as Mildred Hawthorne herself. The folding chairs were arranged in neat rows, facing a makeshift podium where Mildred stood, radiating disapproval. The meeting began with a recap of previous, equally ridiculous HOA concerns. A lengthy discussion ensued over Mrs. Gable's excessively vibrant petunias. Apparently, the shade of pink was too disruptive. Mr. Henderson was reprimanded for having a bird feeder that attracted unauthorized avian species. It was all a prelude to the main event, my pool. Mildred launched into a prepared speech, her voice dripping with disdain. "Mr. Thompson's pool," she said, emphasizing the word with a sneer, "is a blatant disregard for the architectural harmony of Sunridge Estates. It's a modern eyesore, a liquid rectangle of rebellion that clashes with our classic suburban theme." She projected photos of my pool onto a screen, as if presenting evidence of a crime. My internal reaction was a mixture of anger, frustration, and a growing sense of disbelief. Were these people serious? Was a swimming pool really such a threat to their carefully constructed world? The discussion that followed was predictable. Mildred's loyal followers echoed her complaints, while a few brave souls, mostly those who'd secretly enjoyed a dip in my pool, offered hesitant words of support. But the outcome was never in doubt. Mildred held the power, and she was determined to use it. The vote was swift and decisive. "All unapproved water features are hereby banned," Mildred announced, banging her gavel with unnecessary force. "Mr. Thompson, you have 30 days to drain and remove your pool, or you will face substantial fines." The ultimatum was delivered with a smug smile, a clear victory for the forces of beige conformity. Back in my backyard, I stared at the now doomed pool, the setting sun casting long shadows across its shimmering surface. I could fight this, of course. I could hire a lawyer, go to court, and spend months, maybe years, battling the HOA. But the thought filled me with a profound weariness. Fighting the HOA on their own turf is like wrestling a pig in mud. You both get dirty, but the pig enjoys it, I thought, remembering an old saying. There had to be a better way, a more creative way. I looked at the pool again, but this time I saw something different. I saw not a recreational amenity, but a canvas, a blank slate, a potential masterpiece. The water was drained the following morning, leaving behind the smooth, curved concrete shell. It was a sad sight, in a way, but also inspiring. An idea, audacious and wonderfully subversive, began to take shape in my mind. If Mildred Hawthorne hated my pool, then I wouldn't have a pool. I'd have something else entirely, something she couldn't possibly ban, something artistic. Mildred Hawthorne, you want a war on beauty? You've got one. Prepare to be out-arted, I declared internally, a mischievous grin spreading across my face. The game was on. The sound of the pump gurgling as it sucked the last of the water from my pool was, admittedly, a little heartbreaking. It felt like draining a part of my soul, surrendering to the forces of beige. But beneath the sadness, a stronger emotion was brewing. Determination. This wasn't a defeat. It was a strategic retreat, a transformation. As the water level dropped, revealing the stark white plaster of the empty pool, I started to see it with new eyes. It wasn't a void. It was potential. A giant, concrete canvas waiting for its masterpiece. I paced around the empty shell, my mind buzzing with ideas. I envisioned lush greenery, shimmering water of a different sort, vibrant colors, and a sense of serenity that would make even Mildred Hawthorne's tightly wound heart skip a beat. This wouldn't be just a koi pond. It would be an experience, a statement, a work of art so audacious, so unexpected, that it would render the HOA's bylaws utterly useless. The draining was complete. The canvas was clean. Time to create. Transforming the empty pool into a world-class koi pond was a project that quickly escalated from ambitious DIY to slightly insane obsession. First came the fish. I visited a specialty koi importer, a place that felt more like a high-end jewelry store than a pet shop. The owner, a man named Kenji with a serene smile and an encyclopedic knowledge of all things koi, guided me through the selection process. I'd never considered myself a fish person before, but these koi were impressive. Huge, colorful, and surprisingly expensive. I was basically creating an aquatic palace for them, I thought, as I watched Kenji expertly net a particularly magnificent specimen, a shimmering orange and white beauty that cost more than my first car. Next came the landscaping. I hauled rocks, built small stone bridges that spanned the former shallow end, and installed a complex system of underwater LED lighting that would make the koi glow like living jewels at night. I consulted with a Japanese garden specialist, another surprisingly lucrative niche market, who helped me select the perfect water lilies, bonsai trees, and other plants to create a sense of zen-like tranquility. My DIY skills were tested. Let's just say there were a few near disasters involving improperly sealed liners, precariously balanced rocks, and a surprisingly strong current created by the new, high-powered filtration system. But slowly, painstakingly, the transformation took shape. The sterile, empty pool was becoming a vibrant, living ecosystem, a testament to the power of nature, and a significant amount of human intervention. To truly sell this as art, I needed an expert. Enter Jasper, a local artist friend known for his abstract sculptures and his even more abstract explanations of them. Jasper was eccentric, to say the least. He wore paint-splattered overalls, a beret perched at a jaunty angle, and spoke in a language that seemed to consist primarily of art jargon and vaguely philosophical pronouncements. "This space," Jasper declared, after surveying my koi pond with a critical eye, "needs intention. It needs narrative. It needs pretension." I nodded along, trying to look like I understood. "So, you think you can help?" "Darling," he said with a dramatic flourish, "I am help. I will imbue this aquatic tableau with meaning, with depth, with art." Together, we crafted the artist's statement, a masterpiece of pseudo-intellectual nonsense. It spoke of the interplay of light and water, the duality of motion and stillness, and the profound connection between humanity and the natural world. We chose the title, "The Living Reflection of Tranquility." It sounded impressive, vaguely spiritual, and utterly meaningless. Perfect. We took photos, making sure to get the koi in dynamic yet tranquil poses. "This," Jasper declared, holding up the final draft, "is not just a description, it's a manifesto. It's poetry." I wasn't entirely sure what it was, but it definitely sounded like something Mildred Hawthorne would hate, which was good enough for me. With the artistic groundwork laid, it was time to build some buzz. First, I submitted "The Living Reflection of Tranquility" to several online contemporary art databases, carefully selecting the most pretentious-sounding categories I could find: aquatic installation art, kinetic sculpture, existential ecosystems. Next, I crafted a glowing and entirely fabricated review of my own masterpiece, posting it anonymously on various art blogs and forums. "A breathtaking exploration of the ephemeral nature of beauty," I wrote. "A profound meditation on the interconnectedness of all living things. A truly transformative experience." Then I invited Brenda, a local art blogger known for her somewhat influential Instagram account and her love of free food, to a private viewing. Brenda arrived, armed with her camera and a notepad, ready to be impressed. She walked around the koi pond, taking photos from various angles, occasionally nodding thoughtfully. "It's interesting," she said, after a long silence. "Very zen. I love the use of negative space." I had no idea what that meant, but it sounded positive. Her review, which appeared on her blog a few days later, was surprisingly enthusiastic. "Hidden away in the unlikely setting of suburban Sunridge estates," she wrote, "lies a truly unique and captivating work of art. The Living Reflection of Tranquility is a must-see for anyone interested in the intersection of nature, art, and really expensive fish." The "really expensive fish" part was probably not the best phrasing, but overall, it was a win. Finally, feeling emboldened by my success, I applied for a small arts grant from the city, claiming that the living reflection of tranquility was a valuable cultural asset that deserved public funding. I didn't expect to actually get the grant, but the sheer audacity of it, I figured, would further solidify my art narrative and annoy Mildred Hawthorne, which was always a bonus. The day Mildred Hawthorne discovered my living reflection of tranquility was a day that would live in infamy in the annals of Sunridge Estates. I'd orchestrated the reveal carefully, timing it to coincide with Mildred's daily neighborhood inspection. I'd even placed a small, discreet sign near the entrance to my backyard, reading, "Art Installation Viewing. Please maintain a respectful distance." She rounded the corner, her clipboard held aloft like a shield, her eyes scanning for any violation of HOA regulations. Then she saw it. Her reaction was operatic. She froze, her mouth agape, her eyes widening in a mixture of horror and disbelief. She looked like she'd just stumbled upon an alien spaceship landing in my backyard. She took a few tentative steps closer, her head tilted, as if trying to understand what she was seeing. Then, the screaming started. This is insanity!" she shrieked, her voice cracking with rage. "You replaced a perfectly unacceptable pool with an aquatic zoo." She gestured wildly at the koi pond, her perfectly manicured nails glinting in the sunlight. I emerged from behind the tiki bar, a serene smile on my face. "It's an interactive aquatic sculpture, Mildred," I corrected her gently. "A celebration of life, movement, and the inherent beauty of nature. As the artist statement says, it's a representation of—" I glanced down at my phone as though I needed to check the duality of motion and stillness. "It's a fish pond," she roared, her face turning a shade of purple that I didn't think was humanly possible. "It's the living reflection of tranquility," I repeated, emphasizing the title with a flourish. "And it's art." I gestured towards the small, discreet plaque I'd installed near the entrance, displaying the title and the ridiculously pretentious artist's statement. Watching Mildred's face contort with a mixture of rage and confusion was almost as satisfying as the original pool. Almost, I thought, struggling to contain my laughter. She looked like a cartoon villain whose carefully laid plans had just been foiled by a bunch of brightly colored fish. She sputtered, she fumed, she threatened, but it was all for naught. The koi, meanwhile, continued to glide serenely through their watery domain, oblivious to the drama unfolding around them. The HOA, spurred on by a nearly apoplectic Mildred, launched a full-scale assault on my art installation. They convened emergency meetings, they consulted lawyers, they pored over the bylaws, desperately searching for a loophole, a technicality, anything that would allow them to force me to remove my aquatic zoo. But they found nothing. The beauty of classifying it as art was that it bypassed all the usual HOA regulations. There were rules about pools, yes. There were rules about landscaping, certainly. But there were no rules about art. Art, it seemed, was a legal black hole, a realm of creative expression that even the most controlling HOA couldn't penetrate. Their attempts to find a loophole became increasingly comical. They tried to argue that the koi were livestock and therefore prohibited. They claimed the stone bridges were unauthorized structures. They even tried to argue that the water lilies were a non-native species that threatened the local ecosystem. Each attempt was met with a calm, reasoned response from me, backed up by Brenda's somewhat exaggerated blog post, the online art database listing, and, most importantly, a letter from the city confirming that the living reflection of tranquility was officially recognized as a cultural installation and therefore exempt from most HOA regulations. The city, it turned out, was quite happy to have a relatively famous work of art within its borders. Then a new and entirely unexpected ally emerged, the Sunridge Estates Environmental Action Group, CEAG, a small but vocal organization dedicated to promoting sustainability and protecting local wildlife. They'd heard about my koi pond and, after a visit, declared it an exemplary model of an eco-friendly habitat. They praised the natural filtration system, the use of native plants, and the creation of a thriving ecosystem in the heart of suburbia. They even offered to partner with me on educational programs, teaching local schoolchildren about the importance of biodiversity and water conservation. The irony was exquisite. The HOA, obsessed with aesthetics and maintaining a sterile artificial environment, was now facing opposition from environmentalists. Mildred, who had always prided herself on her perfectly manicured and heavily fertilized lawn, was now being accused of being anti-nature. The SEIG members, earnest and well-meaning, became my unwitting foot soldiers in the war against the HOA. They attended meetings, wrote letters to the editor, and generally made life very difficult for Mildred and her dwindling band of supporters. They even organized a Save the Koi Pond petition, which quickly garnered hundreds of signatures. And then it happened. The living reflection of tranquility went viral. It started with a few local social media posts, then a feature on a regional travel blog, then a popular Instagram influencer, known for her love of all things luxurious and aesthetically pleasing, stumbled upon my backyard oasis and shared it with her millions of followers. Suddenly, my koi pond was everywhere. People were sharing photos and videos, marveling at its beauty, its serenity, and its sheer audacity. Travel bloggers were calling it a hidden suburban treasure, a must-see destination, and the most Instagrammable spot in Sunridge Estates. The online comments were a mixture of awe, amusement, and admiration. "This is the ultimate HOA revenge story," one commenter wrote. "Genius," declared another. "I want to live in this fish pond," a third added. The contrast between the online praise and Mildred's continued outrage was hilarious. While the internet celebrated my artistic vision and eco-friendly initiative, Mildred was fuming, issuing increasingly desperate pronouncements about the decline of Western civilization and the threat to property values. I even started receiving offers for collaborations and events. A local yoga studio wanted to hold mindfulness sessions by the pond. A catering company proposed a series of exclusive aquatic dining experiences. A meditation retreat offered to pay me a substantial sum to use my backyard as a sacred space for their clients. My art installation was becoming a legitimate business, a source of both income and endless amusement. Mildred, fueled by a potent cocktail of rage and denial, attempted one final, desperate maneuver. She called yet another emergency HOA meeting, this one with a single draconian agenda item: to pass a new rule banning all unauthorized ponds, water features, and aquatic installations, regardless of alleged artistic merit. She envisioned a swift, decisive victory, a restoration of order, a return to the beige, predictable world she so desperately craved. But she had miscalculated. Badly. The tide had turned. The neighborhood, once cowed by her authority, was now openly rebellious. My koi pond, once a source of controversy, was now a beloved community asset. The meeting, instead of being a coronation of her power, became her Waterloo. Her proposed rule change was met with a resounding no, a chorus of disapproval so loud and so unified that it sent Mildred reeling. It was too late. The living reflection of tranquility had already won. The transformation of Sunridge Estates was complete. What had once been a battleground between me and the HOA had become a celebration of community, creativity, and yes, even a little bit of art. My neighbors, initially hesitant and suspicious, were now my biggest supporters. They came to visit the koi pond, not to complain, but to admire. They brought their children to feed the fish, marveling at their vibrant colors and graceful movements. They attended the yoga sessions, the meditation retreats, and the occasional aquatic dining experience, savoring the unique atmosphere and the sense of shared rebellion. Even Mr. Henderson, the once staunch defender of gnome regulations, could be seen regularly sitting by the pond, a serene smile on his face, a copy of Zen and the Art of Koi Maintenance in his lap. The living reflection of tranquility had not only defeated Mildred Hawthorne, it had also, somehow, brought a sense of peace and unity to the neighborhood. It was a victory far greater than I could have ever imagined. And then, of course, there was the money. My property value, which Mildred had so confidently predicted would plummet, skyrocketed. The living reflection of tranquility, once deemed an eyesore, was now a major selling point. Real estate agents were using it in their listings, attracting buyers from far and wide who were eager to own a piece of the artistic oasis in the heart of suburbia. The irony was, once again, delicious. Mildred's attempts to enforce conformity and maintain a bland, uniform aesthetic had backfired spectacularly. By fighting against my creative expression, she had inadvertently created something unique, something desirable, something that actually increased the value of not just my property, but the entire neighborhood. The aquatic zoo, as she so derisively called it, had become a gold mine. The end came not with a bang, but with a whimper. Mildred Hawthorne, the once feared tyrant of Sunridge Estates, the self-proclaimed guardian of good taste, resigned from the HOA. Her resignation letter was short and bitter, filled with veiled accusations and vague threats of further action. But everyone knew it was over. She was defeated, humiliated, and utterly powerless. She sold her house, at a surprisingly high price, thanks in part to the nearby artistic landmark, and moved away, presumably to terrorize some other unsuspecting community with her pastel-colored vision of suburban perfection. The news of her departure was met with a collective sigh of relief, followed by a spontaneous neighborhood party held, naturally, around my koi pond. And so I returned to my paradise, now officially sanctioned, celebrated, and most importantly, Karen-free. The living reflection of tranquility was more than just a koi pond. It was a symbol of victory, a testament to the power of creativity, and a constant reminder of the sweet taste of revenge. I sat by the edge of the pond, sipping a glass of iced tea, watching the koi glide gracefully through the water, their colors shimmering in the sunlight. The sound of the waterfalls, the gentle breeze rustling through the bamboo, the laughter of my neighbors. It was all perfect. Who knew that art, spite, and a few hundred koi fish could bring so much peace? I guess sometimes you just gotta turn your pool into a masterpiece to find your zen, I thought, a smile playing on my lips. It had been a long, strange journey, but it had all been worth it. I raised my glass in a silent toast to the living reflection of tranquility and the eternal frustration of Mildred Hawthorne.